Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be building a small home on top of a mountain. I was really excited to build something like this because I feel I have a special fondness for small homes or tiny homes surrounded by nature. It might be something to do with the fact that all of the places you can build in The Sims 1 are in suburbia. With the exception of maybe Magic Town, I wouldn't say any of the places you can build feel extremely rural. So I think it's quite nice to try and imitate that on a lot anyway, even though the house is actually going to be in the middle of suburbia. I manipulated the terrain to make the mountain before I actually started recording the build because I was actually not sure if the terrain tools were going to allow me to have a hill large enough that would kind of resemble a mountain, because I really wanted the landscape to look like the house was significantly higher up than the street level, not just a little bit elevated. So I was kind of playing around with that a little bit before I started recording myself building. And I briefly then wanted to test whether a sim could actually get to the top of the mountain before I built anything, because if the terrain was gonna somehow be too steep, I didn't want to spend time trying to make a really nice house that nobody's gonna be able to access. And I was actually quite surprised because even when I made the terrain super steep and made no allowances to make the incline more gradual, my sim had absolutely no problem walking straight to the top of the mountain as if the terrain was not even different at all. It was kind of strange actually, but also useful because it means a sim shouldn't take a long time to get up and down the mountain if they need to get down to the road to catch the carpool or something like that. So I decided I wasn't going to set out a particular path up the mountain that a sim should take by placing steps that kind of go up gradually all the way around the side, because I did kind of have a feeling that Sims would ignore those. A while ago, maybe a few months ago, I built a lot in Vacation Island on one of the snowy lots, and I built these different cabins on different elevated pieces of land, and I tried to make these little trails that the Sims would actually follow in order to get to these individual separate cabins. But when I play tested it, the Sims completely ignored the paths that I'd cultivated carefully in the terrain, and then just walked all over the lot wherever they wanted, regardless of how steep the terrain was. So I did kind of have that in mind when I was building this lot, because I didn't want to create some steps that Sims are just going to ignore and then walk on the grass anyway. So then when I was thinking about building the house itself, at first I kind of hadn't decided if I wanted to actually stick to a tiny home or even micro home tile limit, because there are, technically speaking, tile limits for certain homes in order for them to be classified as a certain kind of home. I mean, that's a gameplay feature in The Sims 4, so it's not really relevant here anyway, but I kind of decided that I wanted the house to be small, but not super small. So it's not, technically speaking, a micro home, it's not a tiny home either, it's a small home. So when you get to the top of the mountain, the first thing you'll see is a kind of covered porch with 3 wood columns supporting the upstairs balcony. Then when you go in the front door, you've got the kitchen and eating area right in front of you, and a little place to read just to the right. Then the bathroom is just opposite that, and the staircase leading to the upper floor is on the right-hand wall. I definitely wanted it to feel cozy and compact, but it's not one of those things where I wanted to use up every single tile. I hope it should still be fairly straightforward for 1 or 2 Sims who are living here to move around without any difficulty. Then when you get to the top of the stairs, there's a small landing area and 2 doors leading into the 2 upstairs rooms, the bedroom and a little TV room. And the TV room has a door that leads out onto the balcony. The TV room, I don't know, it's one of those things. I always like to put a TV in a Sims house if possible. I think it's just like a habit. I mean, there's really no reason why every single house has to have a TV. So this room could definitely be turned into a little study room or maybe a second bedroom, maybe a child's bedroom. I did put a pet bed in there, so it's a place for the house owner's cat or dog to sleep, because I also put a pet food bowl in the downstairs area next to the kitchen, so that room could definitely be repurposed for something else. On the balcony, I just put a few skill building objects like an easel and a checkers set, as well as a hanging plant and a cactus. And I just think that would be a nice spot to kind of enjoy the view, considering the elevation of the house, to look down over the mountain, look down to the road. Then after I had mostly decorated the house, I wanted to spend quite a bit of time just focusing on the landscaping of the mountain itself, because I do feel like that's kind of one of the key reasons you want to live on this lot. I wanted the mountain to be mostly grassy, because when you manipulate the terrain, it turns this sort of brown dirt color, and then you have to kind of use the grass painting tool to make the terrain green again. So I spent quite a bit of time doing that, but trying to make it look not perfectly grassy everywhere, so there's a little bit of variety in the color of the terrain. And I also wanted to make sure there were plenty of plants and trees and shrubs all over the mountain, so it really feels like a place that's alive in nature. And it's funny because some of the plants you can place on any kind of elevated terrain, and some of them have to be on flat terrain. So for example, trees, I had to flatten the terrain in certain parts in order to be able to place a tree on the mountainside. And the same is true for example, the wildflowers, which I just think are really pretty flowers in any garden really. But then with shrubs, I could just sort of dot them all over the mountain to make it look like they're just growing wild and free. I also really wanted to have some lakes, like some different bodies of water around the lot. And like trees, these cannot be placed on uneven terrain. So I decided it would probably be easier to just have them at the bottom of the mountain, rather than trying to create separate pools all the way up it, because I don't know, I felt it would maybe take up a bit too much space. We are on one sim lane, which is quite a large lot, but it's not super large. And I just felt like it made sense that the water from the rain would probably collect in pools at the bottom of the mountain rather than be like sitting on the side of it. So that was kind of why I decided to do that. So I think that was pretty much it. The cost of the lot ended up coming to 32,259 simoleons. So it isn't a starter home, but it is fairly affordable for a family that you haven't necessarily been playing for ages and they don't have tons of money saved, but they've got a little bit more than just starter funds. They could probably move in there. Some of the furniture that I used was a little bit on the expensive side, like the bed, for example. So I feel you could easily go in and swap that out for a cheaper bed, and it would bring down the initial price of the house if you wanted to move your Sims in sooner. So I'll leave a link in the description where you can download this house if you want to add it to your game. Do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.